Welcome to the Wizards of Amazon podcast, where we cover all things private label. My name is Carlos Alvarez, and I will be your host for the show. Today, there is a very exciting episode, and we have a very special guest, Jesse Wolfe, founder of O'Dang Hummus. What's up, Jesse?
What's up? Thanks for having me on. I'm super pumped to be on here.
Definitely. I want to give everybody like a little background on how this happened. I was trying to connect with someone on a meeting, and we'd been having difficulties in connecting. So I jumped on LinkedIn because that's where we had previously messaged. And on LinkedIn, like his most recent post was a post of you. And I think it was a playback of when you were previously on Shark Tank. And I was like, well, you know, Shark Tank gets everybody's attention, but also hummus, the word hummus. And I love hummus. So I'm like, seriously? Like, this is amazing. So I jump into your profile. I start seeing all kind of stuff about hummus, some of the history on this. Some of it you're going to share, and you're going to do a lot better explaining it than me. And next thing you know, I'm 15 minutes later rabbit holing into your YouTube channel and a podcast. I mean, just all over the place. And I'm like, I got to have this guy on the show. We connected. Great conversation. You're full of energy. Again, I can't thank you enough for jumping on the show.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was so funny because when you reached out, you know, you're the Amazon guru. And I was like, ironically enough, I've always wanted to be on Amazon. We just haven't made it to that point yet. But, you know, I think I was so intrigued with your story and vice versa. And our first intro call was just a blast. So I'm excited to be on. I think we're gonna talk about some great epic stuff today for sure.
Yeah, we'll do some damage. That's awesome. That's another cool point. You'll be the first guest on the show that is either not selling on Amazon currently direct or offering a service to help other Amazon sellers. So this is just pure gold here.
I love it. Whoa.
Doing it out of the goodness of your heart. Yeah. So
yeah.
Since you're not an Amazon seller, do you mind, for my audience, just giving a rundown on what you think is important and like just introduce Jesse Wolfe to the listener?
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, so Jesse Wolfe, that's my name. I come out of Orlando, Florida. You know, moved down here for college from Ohio and never left. And, you know, always a bit of an entrepreneur, never realized it when we were a kid. You know, always had, I had the lemonade stand. You know, I sold candy door to door. You know, I had a bike shop in my parents' basement without their knowledge. Like, I was doing anything I could to hustle when I was a kid. But I didn't know that was entrepreneurship, you know. And then when I was 19 in college, I accidentally started a detailing business, you know, as a side hustle that kind of took off. And was making six figures at 19 years old, you know, and that's when I learned about entrepreneurship and what that word meant. And then, you know, the 2008 recession flatlined that dream of mine. And, you know, my next thing was I wanted to sink my teeth into something really big, something I loved, something I was passionate about, but something that had a lot of room for growth. Many failed startups later, you know, I come across this idea for my company, O'Dang Hummus, which I founded. And, you know, I was laid up one day from getting wisdom teeth pulled out in between semesters at my college. And I wanted some buffalo chicken dip, couldn't chew it. So I had some hummus in the fridge and I threw some hot sauce in it and some blue cheese, mixed it up. And I was like, oh, this is stupid good. So I said, but it was too runny, you know? So I went on YouTube later that day and taught myself how to make hummus for the first time ever. And made my first ever flavor of hummus, which was Bombalicious buffalo wing. And I was like, oh, dang, this is delicious, you know? So my friends and family were coming over, checking up on me, you know, after the surgery. And I was feeding them all these different flavors of hummus. I was bored, you know? So I just was like, this is cool. And it took off, man. You know, shortly after that, I had someone ask me to cater a baby shower. And the lady came back and said, you know, the hummus was more popular than the baby that was coming. And
Wow.
I used that next semester in school. I had to write a business plan. So I wrote a business plan for a grade about this concept of being the Ben & Jerry's of hummus. Took that business plan at the end of the semester, entered it into our collegiate business plan competition, took third place, took that $4,000 of prize money, and launched this thing in the farmers markets here in Orlando. And that, you know, that's the nickel tour, man. From there, it went gangbusters. You know, within a year of launching at the farmers markets, hell, actually, like 6 months into it, we were down in Miami auditioning for Shark Tank. Next thing I knew, and about a year later, you know, we're filming for the TV show Shark Tank. So it was just a whirlwind, man. Just wild how this thing took off. But, now I'm one of the fastest growing brands in the CPG space. We're the first naturally vegetarian, vegan salad dressing, first plant-based salad dressing to ever hit the United States nationally. So we've got a lot of claim to fame, and we're really big at innovating the health food space and the natural food space in our CPG category, just revolutionizing food and making good food that doesn't suck to eat. You know what I mean? So that's what we do, and I'm having fun doing it. That's for sure.
Heck yeah. I actually ordered your stuff. I sent you the screenshot. I didn't think you're going to reply even on LinkedIn. So I'm like, you know what? I didn't know if it was any good at that time. I like the story. I like the vibe. I ordered it. I sent you a screenshot. Look, I just ordered it. And I've actually had to taste it. I tasted it at this point. It was actually really good. Like I was mentioning before, it was like, I don't know. I hear vegan and I hear other stuff, and I'm imagining watery, tasteless, pieces of celery floating around and like something like that. That's what I imagined. Yeah. But this was like very hearty. It tasted very good. So
yeah, that's the idea. The science behind what we do is basically
like O'Dang.
O'Dang, that's right.
O'Dang.
Health food used to suck. It was pretty bad to get down, a lot of it. But a lot's changed in the last 5 years. And for us, we basically took out all the oils and fats of traditional salad dressings and we replaced them with real vegetables. So when you eat hummus, it's super creamy, really good dip. So in essence, we thinned out hummus, to create a dressing. There's a lot more science behind it because, if you take a solid, a chickpea, and mix it with a liquid, they want to separate. Right. So we've spent, several years perfecting that recipe, if you will. But it's been fun, man. A lot of learning. That is for sure. Ton of lessons.
We've already kind of locked in like several future topics. This will be the first one to come out. Like there's a lot going on here. So I don't want anyone listening saying, hey, why didn't you ask him about this? The topic today, I don't even know how to put it into words, but it's going to be, it's in short, it's Costco's amazing, but it's, when you decide to go from e-commerce, whether it's Amazon or anything, and you decide to go into or straight to big box retail stores, you should be picky in the process of doing it. And we're going to talk today about doing that with Costco and why that's a good move. Before though, you mentioned something and I just have to ask, like the geek in me wants to know, and that is you mentioned you were selling out of farmers markets in that early stage. Well, out of curiosity, pure curiosity, what were you doing to get awareness? Was it like a social media play? Was were you cooking out of your kitchen? Like, I feel like I'm missing something there.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a question I've never gotten actually. And I've done a ton of interviews and podcasts at this point. So I always get excited when somebody throws me a new curveball question. So hummus is like the worst type of food to bring to market for CPG, as I found out many years later, because it's refrigerated. If it's frozen, it's easy. You throw dry ice on it, you're good to go. If it's shelf stable, you don't have to worry about it. But refrigerated, like hummus doesn't do that well when you freeze it. So it was a pain. So, a lot of people ask did you start direct to consumer? Yeah, I did in the literal sense. Like I literally handed every tub to my consumer. Shipping hummus was really, really hard to do. And very expensive, especially back in 2014 when we started. So, it's one thing to give free hummus away to your friends and family, but for this to be a viable business, I needed to understand if people were willing to pay money for this. So being in Florida, we have farmers markets year round. I mean, Thursday through Sunday. And I remember going to one of the markets and asking the lady, I was like, hey, what's it cost to sell here? Thinking it'd be hundreds of dollars. And she was like, oh, it's $25. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, can I sell here? Thinking where do I sign up? And she's like, oh, you have to go online and put your name on the waiting list. And I'm like, all right. I'm watching this old lady sell soap next to me. And I'm like, well, that spot next to hers open up. Can I just have that one? And she's like, yeah, no, you have to sign up. And I'm like laughing at myself because I was so naive. I'm like, what am I signing up for? It's a farmer's market, And she's like, we have a 1.5 year waiting list. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, for what? And I kind of said it without thinking. And she's like, what do you mean for what? And I'm like, it's a farmer's market. It can't be that serious. And I was like, can I just set it next to the soap lady? And she's like, that soap lady's making $400,000 a year. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. So I was like, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought to get into these markets. And I spent 6 months getting rejected by every market within like 40 miles of my house for various reasons. They were full, waiting list. But I knew if I cracked one and I could get people excited about the brand, I could do it. So my whole tactic was find one market. So I got a market, you know, it was just opening up, like brand new market. And it was on a farm, which was hysterical because it was truly a farmer's market. And I get there and I get set up and I was like, listen, I told the one guy, my one friend I basically drug in to help me sell at the markets for the first couple of weeks. I'm like, we're going to do things a little different. I'm like, when you go to farmers markets, they're very mundane. You know, everybody just kind of hangs out. I was like, I want to be the fun tent, you know? So we hung this big ass cowbell.
I totally see it.
Yeah. I mean, we did. I was like, I got to figure out every which way possible to get people to stop, because just like a car accident on the highway, it stops both lanes of traffic, because while one actually has to deal with a car accident, the other one's rubbernecking. And like psychology 101, people have to know what the frick's going on. So I said, we just got to figure out how to get people to stop at the booth to get more people than to stop at the booth. So I went on Vistaprint where I ordered my banner from, you know, and I ordered a little stamp like for like mailing letters, but I drew like this little penguin on like literally Microsoft Paint and had O'Dang written below it. And that was a stamp. So we were stamping kids' hands. We had the cowbell that people would, if they liked the sample we gave them, you know, they'd ring the cowbell. And then we had dog bowls with free dog treats and water. So like people would walk up with their dogs, they'd be drinking the water, they'd get a dog treat, we'd be talking to them, but it made it look like the booth was always busy. And, you know, then the cowbell would be going off when people were trying samples. So we just became like kind of the cool kids, if you will, the farmer's market. And within 2 weeks, I kid you not, 2 weeks, we had lines 20, 30, 40 people deep waiting for us to open to buy the market or buy the hummus. And it would actually block other people's tents. So then we became like this like villain to some degree between the market people. But then the customers were like, holy shit, you have to get there before it sells out. And then we were kind of doing the Supreme model. We would only bring 300 tubs of hummus with us on purpose. And when it was gone, it was gone. And we purposely never brought enough to get through a full market. And every time we thought we'd get close to going, you know, all the way to the end of the market, it would sell it anyways. And that just hype just constantly built and built and built.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm scared to try to unpack any of that because I'm going to geek out on it. The whole show is going to be about this, like the strategy. There's a lot there.
There is. Yeah. Yeah. We were just really outside the box, you know, just because like the farmers markets are done a certain way doesn't mean we had to stick to them. You know, we were fun. We were polite. We made a lot of great friends, you know, at the market with some of the other vendors, but then there was a handful of vendors that despised us, you know, so, but my thing is like, you're there to sell. So like provide an experience, you know what I mean? And we actually use the farmers markets to build our tribe. So there's a great book called, I think it's like Tribe of 1,000 People. Great book. And it's literally talking about getting your first 1,000 customers, then using them as your tribe. And that's what I was trying to do at the farmers market. So like, I was there mainly to beta test the product. Like, do you like it? Does it need more salt, pepper, whatever? You know, when any feedback I could get from them, we were trying new flavors, textures, consistencies. And in doing so, we were dragging all those customers along on the ride. You know, they felt like they were a part of the O'Dang story. And man, when, you know, we hit about 1,100 followers, we called them to action and it blew my mind. I mean, blew my mind, like what we were able to use them for, even to this day.
Yeah, I've used farmers markets a lot for product launches that I was about to do for a personal brand on Amazon though. And I would have like I'd have like a vac pot, a French press, a pour over, an espresso. I'd be making all kind of free coffee, even though the coffee wasn't in my product. But I'm like, okay, people like seeing this laboratory looking set. I think the same principle that you're saying to get people to stop, and you kind of got to have a conversation when you're making that coffee. So I'm able to talk about my product. They can touch it, smell it, bite it, whatever. And I was like hooking them up to SMS. I'd use a tool like Slick Text. I'm like, if you really like this, text the word blank to 69922. And I'd get that machine going that way. But yeah, no, I love that. I love that.
That's the smart way. I like that too. Dang, that's really good. That's smart.
Yeah, like text the word dang. You know?
Yeah, dang, that is good. That is really good.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about big box retailers or Costco specifically. So we could do this from, you know, you have a product. In your case, we could use your case. You didn't go to Amazon first. You went
Yeah.
straight to retail. What was that whole experience like? Walk me through it. What should people avoid? What advice could you give somebody who, most of the listeners here have a brand that they've created and they're in different stages and they're on Amazon and they're experiencing some success, and they naturally like, I want to get to retail, but that's where everything gets cloudy.
Right. Well, you know, my Amazon story, it's kind of funny because I am obsessed with Bezos, like most entrepreneurs are. You know, Amazon, especially back, you know, 2011, 2012, 2013 was, I mean, just such a new frontier to some degree for a lot of people. And I wanted to put my product on Amazon, but Amazon wouldn't accept our product. We tried because it was a fresh product. So you could do shelf-stable food, but our hummus was fresh. So we actually looked at alternating our products. So we looked at possibly trying to can and jar hummus for the sole purpose of getting on Amazon. But the product just never tasted the way we wanted it to. We could not figure out how to jar hummus and make it successful. So that really didn't leave us much option. You know, we had the farmer's market route. We were doing stupid well in farmer's markets. I mean, we're talking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 months, you know, at a farmer's market. This is crazy. But you know, my thing was, okay, if we can't go online with this, and I mean, we tried to ship it, you know, direct to consumer, even through our own website. Disaster. You know, I mean, the coolers were so expensive. Hummus isn't an expensive product. So like, you know, if you're shipping a can of caviar, it could be $100. So you don't mind paying $15, $20 for shipping. When you're shipping 6 tubs of hummus, it's only $30 a product, and you're paying $20 to ship it. You know what I mean? So it was not that advantageous to try to ship it. It was really tough. And, you know, then you had to get through 6 tubs of hummus, right? So it was a little tough. So we were like, okay, let's try the retail route. Like, that's going to be the next route. And, you know, we went, actually our first store that took our product in was Whole Foods down in Florida. And we had a great experience at Whole Foods. And then shortly after, a chain called Publix picked us up. And then we just compounded. And one of our biggest victories was the chain Costco, and how Costco is just a monster of an account, and what a great partner they are, especially for brands coming off the internet. You know, if you've gotten, you know, and this is where we could talk about this, Whole Foods loves local natural products, right? Mm-hmm. And Whole Foods is obviously mainly like a CPG food space product company. They don't, you know, they'll do makeup and they'll do, you know, natural skincare products and stuff like that, but they don't sell really anything else aside from CPG food and healthcare. Publix is the same way. Costco is a different beast. And what's exciting for Costco and exciting for people coming off of a successful Amazon product and Amazon business, Costco loves exclusivities. So if you've never sold in retail, and let's say you're doing, you know, 6 figures, 7 figures on Amazon, that is immense traction for someone like Costco to get behind. That you could show them right away, hey, this crush is on there. So, you know, in the sake of, you know, I don't know, let's say blue blockers, right? Like I wear blue blockers on my computer. If you're crushing it on Amazon with blue blockers, going to Costco would be sick, because you can go to Costco and go like, listen, you know, I'm going to do a 2-pack of blue blockers. Like, here's a day and there's a night blue blocker. We're going to put it in a carded tray for you. You know, normally we sell them on Amazon for $50 each. You know, we're going to do 2 pairs for $75 retail at Costco. And Costco loves that. And you can even say like, listen, I'll bring in a pink pair only for Costco. I won't sell that anywhere else. And the thing about Costco is they love that exclusivity. They're a great partner. They'll even help you kind of work through that phase of it. And, you know, they'll tell you like, hey, you know, you should card it like, you know, maybe 1 pair of glasses with a case instead. Like, they've got incredible data around their business. And then what they'll do is they don't bring in, you know, 1,000 pairs of glasses. They bring it in by the pallet. So, you know, Costco has like 600 locations, and what they'll do is they'll go, you know, they start by region. And if all the regions like it, they'll bring it in nationwide. But even by a region, I mean, like the Southeast region is like 70 stores roughly. They'll bring in 140 pallets of your product. And a pallet can contain 200, 600 pairs of blue blocker glasses. So in one swoop, you're blowing through thousands of pairs of inventory.
Container.
Oh yeah. I mean, semis. I mean, our first couple Costco orders, they were small. We did Costco, Texas is their smallest region. It's like 32 stores. That sent out 3 semis of our product. So like, that's a monster order. 3 semi trucks full of dressing went to Costco. And it's crazy because they're super fair. You know what I mean? Their whole thing is provide our fan base, our customer, our club member with a deal. And in return, they don't take monster margins. They take on average like an 18% margin. They expect you to kind of come down on your margin a little bit. And we just pass all that saving through to the customer. And the best part about Costco that I can't stress enough is Costco's king of paying on time, man. Some of these retailers will drag you out. I mean, we've seen from my product, and I'm sure you guys have seen it too on Amazon. You got net 45, net 90, net 180. I mean, it's crazy. Costco's 10 day, baby. 10 days they pay. They get you a check.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and it is, I've actually gotten paid. I don't think it's ever hit 10 days. I've gotten paid in 2 days, 4 days. And I mean, it's, big money. So, it's a great partner. And when people transition, in my opinion, when people transition from a online e-commerce type business into retail, you've got to be very finicky about who you're picking as that launch partner, because not every retailer is going to be equal. So like, let's use the example of Costco. Costco, if you walk through a Costco, they're very, very hard on their partners. They want the best of the best. They don't accept anything. They don't accept BS. They don't bring in, cheap knocked off stuff. They really do the homework on it. So you could basically have the confidence to shop blindly at Costco and know that everything in there has been extremely vetted out. Now, if you're bringing, again, let's say you're trying to build a brand of blue light blockers, right, on Amazon. If you're trying to bring in a brand and build a brand, that's why Costco, for example, would be such a good partner, because that's the equivalent of going into like a Target, right? Target is a great retailer partner to be into. So, versus going into like, and I'll use a fake name, Bob's Discount Store, right? If you're trying to build a pair of high-end blue blockers, selling your first customer in retail, Bob's Discount Store, it's not going to help your brand. It's going to hurt your brand, right? There's reasons why you don't see, Rolexes in Walmart, for instance, right? That's just not where it belongs, right? That's not where your customer base is, and they're trying to hold that class of branding to a higher level. So, you got to be finicky, and I've seen so many brands transition personally from a great e-commerce business to they just panic and they start seeing numbers like, Bob's.
Oh my God, Radio Shack says they'll carry my stuff. Let's just go there. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, 2,000 Radio Shack stores. Let's take, they start seeing the numbers. Oh my God, that's $300,000 order. But Radio Shack isn't your customer, right? Radio Shack is dying. The customer base is giving up on them. It's going to be a nightmare. And then the problem is once you're in there, right? Like, let's say you take the Radio Shack deal. It's a hell of a lot harder to go the other way and get into higher end retail because you just stamped yourself as I'm a Radio Shack product. So you got to be very finicky. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen great brands slip up and fall into that trap of, oh my God, there's an 800 store chain or a 1,500 store chain that wants to take us in. But I'm like, that's not your brand. What are you doing? Like, stop it. You know what I mean? And it's a little dicey.
And you feel like Costco is that golden seal. Like if they take you and somebody's like, oh, you're carried in Costco, like you must be good.
Yeah. So especially like in the food space specifically, if you do well in Costco, that's a very high standard. And what's great, here's another fun fact about Costco. Costco is very different than a lot of retailers. So like, let's say, like Walmart's actually another fantastic retailer, believe it or not. Walmart is probably my favorite retailer, to be honest with you. But Costco is my favorite on a whole nother level because Costco operates unlike any other retailer on earth. Walmart, if they say, hey, I'm going to take your blue blockers in, they're going to tell you we're going to put you in 1,500 stores, okay? And you're in there for a full 12-month cycle, okay? And they do that because they're going to reset that planogram. They're going to make sure your product's in there carded, et cetera. And then they're going to order 12 pairs, per store to start, or let's say 10 pairs. So 10 pairs per store to start, and that's your opening order. And then every week you just get reorders, and you get reorders, and you get reorders. And that's great. It's a great business model. However, it can be a lot for a brand transitioning from, Amazon e-commerce world to retail.
Like one time I'm loading up some boxes and sending to FBA, and I don't have to touch it for months.
Exactly. And that's kind of what's great about Costco that a lot of people don't understand is, for the most part, you're not on a permanent rotation at Costco. And that's Costco's MO. Costco loves the treasure hunt for their card member. They like to change it up. They like to bring new stuff in. So that keeps them excited, and it keeps their member, engaged and always, spending more at the checkout line. What that translates to for, a new supplier coming off of a red hot Amazon business is you might only get in, like, let's say blue blockers are a great example again. Let's say they bring you in for back to school season. Makes sense. Blue blockers, back to school, computers, etc. You're going to come in. They might place one order your first, run with them. And they're going to say, we're going to put you in all the stores, all 600 locations, and we're going to put you nationwide, and we're going to take them all in for September 1st. You go in, they place one order, and it sells through, and that's usually it. So it's a really nice way to get your feet wet. You're also going to make, a great killing if it sells through. Sometimes if it really crushes, they'll give you a heads up, like ahead of time, like, hey, we think this is going to do really well. Be prepared for like another order, maybe 3 or 4 weeks into this. So then you can get that bonus. Then once that goes through, what they'll do is they'll evaluate it, and they'll go like, listen, we want you for Christmas time now too. Or, hey, the year 2021, we're going to bring you in 4 times. So it's never usually a permanent rotation. You have to be like, a Frito-Lay or an Apple or a Bose to get a year-round placement, of that magnitude in a Costco. And that's what's kind of fun. So, if you're getting your feet wet on the retail side, again, that's what makes somebody club like Costco, BJ, Sam's Club really attractive. They call it an in and out. You're just going in. It's a short-term thing, and you get to see and test how the product does.
Awesome. Let's walk it back really quick. You're crushing it in the farmers markets.
Yeah.
And you're like farmers market God in hummus, right? And then I know all the listeners, and for me at one time it was too, is it seems like you just said, you know what, let's go to big box retail stores. You emailed someone real quick and they sent you a PO. Can we talk about that? Like, cause everybody, they're like, I would love to get in Walmart, but no one returns my calls and I can't get a hold of anybody. What did that transition look like from, I tried eComm, we have an issue with the temperature in this product, going direct to retail is going to be, getting in retail stores, is going to be where we need to be. How did you get there?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I mean, to be honest with you, we did it all wrong.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Let's hear that. That's more important. Yeah, let's hear that.
It was so funny because our first meeting with a real CPG store was Whole Foods. And it went like us just walking into a Whole Foods store and going, hey, we want to sell here. Who do we talk to? You know what I mean? And we ended up doing that to like a dozen Whole Foods locations. And we learned, by asking those questions that we needed to talk to the regional manager, who's also their like main buyer. So again, that wasn't the right way to go about it, but we were able to get the person we needed to, get in front of, at least his name. So we hounded him down via email, for a couple weeks. And then we actually knew someone gave us a heads up at the store that he was
going to be at the gas station or something.
Yeah. Yeah. We rolled up in the Lincoln with baseball bats, So they gave us a heads up. So we caught him in the store and just played dumb, like, oh, hey, crazy to run into you, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, listen, I'm here all day tomorrow. This is a great story. You ready for this? He goes, I'm here tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. I don't have time for you. I'm like, all right. I'm like, sick. We got a meeting. Meanwhile, this dude's like throwing me out, but I'm like, yeah, we got a meeting. So we go back the next day, and they sit us in this like, so Whole Foods has like an eating area next to their buffet, right? You pay, then you sit there and eat. So we're sitting there, and I'm in a suit and tie. I made my like intern also come with me so we looked bigger. He's in a suit and tie, and we're amongst all these like just normal people eating like lunch. And the guy came out, and he was with all the, like, I guess they had some big training with all the store managers from the state of Florida. So all these store managers are behind him, and he comes out and he goes, shit, I forgot about you. And I'm like, oh, no big deal. Like, whenever you've got time. And he's like, all right. He's like, I got 20 minutes. You get 20 minutes of my time. So he sits down and he goes, I said, hey, thanks for having us. Super excited. Like, we're trying to be real professional. And he goes, okay, enough. Tell me why the fuck I need another tub of hummus in my store. And I went like, oh, man. And literally, I mean, in front of the customers and everything. And I'm like, whoa, what is this dude doing right now, Caught me off guard. So I said, you know what, you're right. And I said, you don't need another fucking tub of hummus. And then I caught him off guard because he's like, what? Did you just say the F word to me, And I said, as a matter of fact, I walked into your store several times and I see you have 5 roasted red pepper hummus, 3 garlic hummus, 4 vegetable hummus. I'm like, you don't need those. I'm like, what you don't have is you don't have a buffalo wing. You don't have a dill pickle. You don't have a sweet and spicy black bean. You don't have a brownie batter. I'm like, so you're right. You don't need 5 roasted red peppers. In fact, I would suggest you delete one of them and you replace it with us. And man, we ended up staying in that meeting for 2.5 hours. We got invited inside the meeting to sit with the store managers and stuff. And we ended up getting in. That was our first meeting, small scale. So then I did it again. This is what you don't do, kids. This is what you don't do to get in retail. So then I wanted in front of Publix at the same time. So I could not. So everyone knows what a gatekeeper is. And if you don't, a gatekeeper is like the secretary, right? Her or his job is to fully keep you from getting an unwanted call to their boss. So Publix has got an excellent gatekeeper system. I mean, you cannot get into Publix. So my method with that was they were just hanging up on me. You're not even like giving me the time of day at that point because I was calling too many times. So I ended up getting on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's my favorite. Getting on LinkedIn, I found some guy that also went to UCF around the same time I did. And I feel bad about this day. So if this guy ever finds out this is me, like, shout out, I'm sorry for playing you like this, but thank you at the same time. So I call him up. I call up Publix, and I'm like, hey, I forget his name. His name was like Chris something. I was like, hey, can I get Chris, whatever in this department? Like, I had a name. And the lady was like, okay, like very skeptical. So she transferred me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get somebody, So I said, Chris, and he was over the floral department. Remember, we sell hummus. He's over the flowers. So I said, Chris, what's up, dude? I was like, my name's Jesse Wolfe. I went to UCF with you. Do you remember? We had psychology together. And like at UCF, psychology is the largest class they have. Like it's like 3,000 students like per class. So there's no way he would have remembered anybody from that class. And I just snowballed him. I was like, yo, dude, I was like, check this out. Like, since UCF, I started this hummus company. It's crazy. Our friend Sarah, told me that you're working at Publix. Congratulations. I was like, dude, you're making it. Like, I'm so proud of you. And he was like so caught off guard because I threw so much shit at him at one time. He was like, oh, you're from UCF? And I said, yeah, dude. I was like, don't you remember? Like, we sat next to each other. We shared notes, study hall. He was like, oh, yeah. Like, he didn't want to be rude, He's like, yeah, I think I do remember you, man. Congrats, man. I'm so proud of you. I'm like, yeah, man. I'm like, so Sarah said I should show you my hummus because, you work at Publix. Maybe you'd want to bring it in, or like have a meeting. And he's like, dude, man. And now I got him comfortable. He goes, dude, man, I buy the flowers. I'm like, oh, dude, see, I thought it was you, man. I'm so sorry. And he's like, you need to talk to Teresa at extension 261. And I'm like,
booyah.
Chris, I'm like, will you transfer me, dude? I'm like, or should I just call back? And he's like, no, I got you. I'll transfer you. So now I got Chris transferring me, okay? And when Teresa answers, she goes, "Hey, this is Teresa." You know, I was like, "Hi, Teresa. My name's Jesse Wolfe. I'm from O'Dang Hummus." And she was like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Do you know Chris Anderson?" I was like, "He's over in the Florida department." She goes, "Yeah, I know Chris." I'm like, "Listen, Chris saw me at a farmer's market, said, 'This is amazing hummus,' and that I had to show you." So here I am. I called Chris and he transferred me. And she's like, "Okay, yeah, let's talk." She was skeptical, but she was like, "All right." So, so I hacked it that way to get the meeting, and they ended up giving us a meeting, and ultimately going into Publix that way. But that was definitely not the right way to do it. Come to find out, and again, going back to, if you're going from e-commerce like Amazon or online direct to consumer into a retailer, you want to get a good broker. We went to like our first 2 meetings. I didn't know what a broker was. I had no idea how to find brokers. So it was me. So I remember the first meeting I had at Publix, I walk in looking like a used car salesman. I got the suit, I got the tie, I've got, these big boxes of our product. And I go to the front counter and they were like, Kraft Heinz. And this team of like 30 people walks up in like just polos and slacks. And then the lady looks at me and she goes, "I assume you're O'Dang Hummus?" And I went, "Yeah." And she's like, "You're new, I get it." Because I'm in a full suit and these people are in real casual, gear. So, we got to the meeting. We convinced them to buy it, which was a beyond miracle. I don't know how we pulled that off, to be honest with you. But going back in meetings after that with brokers, completely different experience. Like very well buttoned up. I mean, the meetings are already like warmed up, ready to go. Much better experience, much better outcomes, using brokers to get in.
How did you connect to your first brokers? At this point, you're in 2 or 3 stores, but before you realize we're not doing, I don't know anybody else from UCF. Like, I don't know how to, like, how did you connect with your first broker?
Yeah, so we were getting stonewalled, often, like left and right, trying to get to the buyers. I didn't know the buyers. And then like what you got to understand in the retail setting is, I don't care what widget you're selling, whether it's a food fidget spinner or a pair of glasses, everything in the big box retailers is on a category review cycle. So like we're fidget spinners for Walmart, they might only buy those in January, like the first week to the 15th, Blue blockers might be June, and then, dressing might be August. And there's a bunch of different buyers, et cetera. So half the battle is knowing that calendar. Right? Knowing when you're supposed to present, because you have to literally like fill out paperwork and send in a sample of your product for them to go, "Yeah, I'll give you a meeting. Like, let's see what you got." So like the first year we chased a lot of the, "Oh shit, we just missed the meeting," or "The meeting's not for 8 months from now." So that was super aggravating. And then the other thing was too, trying to find the right buyer. So like there's a head buyer, then there's a bunch of assistant buyers. And you want to get to the head buyer if you can. And again, that's what a broker helps out. So when it came time for us to find our first broker, again, we had a very unconventional story. We applied for this opportunity called Made in America by Walmart. And it was basically like a Shark Tank 2.0. But instead of winning an investor, if they liked you, you just got into Walmart, which is a massive deal. And yeah, it's crazy. The conditions were, your product had to be made in America and you had to create American jobs. Okay, so we qualified for that. We applied. Somehow we got in. They selected like 750 people to fly out to Bentonville to the corporate offices, and out of like thousands of people. So we get in. As soon as that happened, basically I was like locking up deals with my investors. And, we made a lot of media news that we've been selected. So I had a slew of brokers reach out to me. So what I realized is once you start hitting trade shows and, that type of thing, and the brokers will reach out to you. But again, not all brokers are created equal. So, I had to learn that whole lesson too on what's a good broker,
Well, that might be episode 4.
Ooh, yeah, that would be a great
topic. Doing a lot of writing over here.
Yeah, brokers would be a great one to go after, because that was a learning curve and a half. But a broker can make or break you. I mean, we've had terrible brokers and we've had incredible brokers to where we sign a deal with them, they get behind the product, they like the product, and then we've had it to where I don't even have to show up to the meeting. The brokers have such a good relationship with those buyers. They walk in, they go, listen, we've been doing business for 30 years. You trust what I bring you. I bring you O'Dang. I want it. Let's do it. And then I just get an email. And then I've had other ones where it's, you fly in, you go to the meetings too. So yeah, our first broker basically came out of a mix of, the media and our investors and the Walmart buzz. And we were able to get a really good broker behind us right away off of, all that kind of hype going into that meeting. And then from there, we were able to use that broker to go, hey, we need a Kroger broker. Who do you have? Okay. Hey, I need a Publix broker. Who do you have? Like, who do you know? And you just start networking that way and checking references and stuff. And then trade shows help too.
Woo, you did not disappoint on this topic, man. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
Just scratching. Yeah.
What do you feel is to add one more thing, because I want to be respectful of your time, but what's one thing you feel like I did not ask, or, picking the broker, we need to get that right. Not all stores are created equal.
Yep.
One more golden nugget you think to succeed in these big box retail stores where other people are probably getting it wrong?
Yeah. Again, so, the big takeaway is not all stores are created equal. Like, that's the one thing, everyone listening, just really think that through. Like, it might be exciting to see a PO come in for 1,000 stores to store, B, but really you need store A, and don't settle for B, especially coming out of the gates, because that tattoos your brand right away. Now, 5 years down the road, if you're in every retailer, then it's fine to go into the retailer B, right? You're maxed out, you're everywhere you need to be. You got your brand locked in stone. It's good to go. However, another nugget, if I had to pepper it in there, would be don't worry about that opening purchase order, right? You're used to seeing, God knows what from Amazon, God knows what from direct to consumer. Let's say you're doing $100,000 a month on Amazon, right? You don't need $1 million purchase order going into retail. The whole goal is to transition and get your foot in the door with the right retail partner. So again, let's say you're selling super high-end blue blockers. If Macy's is your demographic and their opening order is $10,000, be effing excited about that and don't push hard on a bigger order. Get in there, get comfortable, and prove yourself. Blow through that inventory, make that stuff fly off the shelves, make Macy's happy, because then you're going to get repeat bigger orders almost instantly. In the other way, you could get somebody, like Bob's Discount Store, that wants to wow you over and say, listen, we're going to bring in for 10,000 stores, and, here's a $500,000 purchase order. And you're just looking at the dollar signs. And the problem is you just tarnished your brand right out of the gates. You went from this incredible direct-to-consumer brand to now a very Me Too product overnight, right? And I see that happen a lot with direct-to-consumer. And what you do is you piss off your fan base in doing so. They're behind you. They're supporting you. And you want a great case study on this? Look at what Schwinn did. Schwinn Bicycles did in the early 2000s. They had a cult following. They were only sold in the high-end bike shops. Mm-hmm. And they switched and they sold to Walmart. And it pissed a ton of bike shops off. Because how do you want a bike shop to sell a $600 mountain bike when you've got a $150 mountain bike at Walmart, right? Doesn't make sense. Even though they are completely two different products, the average consumer is going to fight you on that left and right. So pick your battles very carefully, because you can end up in the Schwinn Bicycle type of case. But if you do it right, retail can just be another badass revenue stream for you.
Oh, well said. I got to sneak in one more question. You said something
please.
That just triggered something. And it's, you get your products in, say it's even a small, well, air quotes here, like small order of 10,000 pieces or $10,000 from Macy's or anywhere else. And you're grateful for the relationship. You can get your bearings there and big orders can come later. What are some things you could do, or that you feel or expect that they expect you to do to continue to drive sales in the stores, or all the stores you're working with pretty much saying, we got it from here?
Great question. I mean, this is why I knew this podcast was going to be fun because, I mean, you're just so good at questions. That's another question I've never gotten on air, and that's a great topic to talk about. You are just like Amazon, right? That's a partner in your business. So you want to be a partner in every way possible with a retailer. How do you do that? What do I mean? So let's say you're going in Macy's, 10,000 pairs. You go to Macy's and you make sure they're PR. One, I learned this lesson. Make sure they're cool with you talking about, hey, I'm selling my product in your store. 99% of the time, they are, okay? I have had an instance where they're like, you can't use our logo, this and that. Okay, don't piss off an entire retailer because you didn't check. Usually they're cool with it. But then what can you do? So let's go back to blue blockers. I'm putting a $100 pair of blue blockers in Macy's, $10,000 order. You can do a lot of stuff. No, you don't need to put it on sale. No, you don't need to be there necessarily at every store demoing the product. Get online, tee up your social media to run ads saying, hey, diamond blue blockers, in Macy's now. Celebrate your launch. Talk about we're so excited to be partnering with Macy's. Make it a big deal. Get your fan base to go in and take photos. We've done that. We call them shelfies. Our fans would go into Publix. They would take a shelfie, and then they would tag Publix. So then Publix saw like, hey, look, we turned our audience onto your store. You know what I mean? And then, one big step really that gets people excited, like retailers, get influencers involved. You know what I mean? Find a few influencers that you like, get them involved in the quote unquote launch into Macy's, and make it a big deal. And then, after a couple weeks, have a couple more set of influencers talk about your product and how, they're now sold at Macy's. If you have a Macy's near you, go check it out. And the buyer watches you like a hawk about that stuff, especially nowadays with the power of social media. And that'll really just solidify a great relationship. Because think about how many other brands are not doing that. Old school brands that just, they take it in, it sits on the shelf, and you hope you see it, right? You're trying to promote Macy's. You're trying to promote your brand, and it's a good omen for your relationship.
Definitely makes sense. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. You don't sell any services, but I have no doubt that a lot of people are going to be reaching out to you. So
please,
so pick what I'm about to say carefully. Any contact information for anybody that wants to reach out to you and continue the conversation, talk about O'Dang, get some advice, anything. How can somebody reach you?
Yeah, listen, I love the help. So just, be patient with me, and I try to work through a lot of my emails. But, my favorite thing's LinkedIn. Connect on LinkedIn, just Jesse, Jesse, my middle initial S, and then Wolfe, Wolfe, on LinkedIn, or Real Jesse Wolfe on Instagram. And actually TikTok, that's another big one for me. Just shoot me TikTok, love it. Just shoot me a DM, and, we can pick it up from there. But I always love to help anybody and network and, do what I can to, keep people from stepping on the landmines I did.
Definitely. Jesse, you're absolutely amazing. I thought about it beforehand. I predicted it, but this was definitely the most exciting podcast I've hosted to date. Like I felt it coming. Didn't disappoint. I'm looking at these other topics here. I'm gonna have to be careful how I ask questions because I feel like there's 6 different topics that we just hinted at here that aren't even on this list. So I felt like I could have spent 2 hours talking about the farmers markets and all that grassroots stuff in the beginning. We're going to schedule something else to get another one of these amazing topics that
awesome.
We have in the chamber going. But before letting you go, what is your favorite book and why?
Favorite book. I talk about this damn book all the time. It's The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever brought that up on the show before, but Tim Ferriss, love what he does. I love his writing. I've read a lot of Tools of Titans, all that. But 4-Hour Work Week is one of the biggest reasons why O'Dang's here today. And there's a whole excerpt in there about how to reach people that are unreachable. And I'm not going to spoil it. Read the book. You'll see that part when you come up about it. But basically he says, and he challenges you, you could talk to anybody on this planet if you use this format. And I've taken that format. I learned it years ago. And I've probably read that book 6, 7 times easy. but I've now grown my own format for how I reach out to people. So that's my favorite, probably one of my favorite books, if not my favorite book right now. And I like to give it away as gifts, you know, to people I meet and stuff. So if you haven't read it, 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss, check it out.
Yeah, definitely. I read the book once, and it's been a while, and I'm not recalling the area about reaching out to someone. So I'm definitely going to go back and read it. We have an entrepreneurs book club on Facebook. We pick like one book a month, we read it, and then we get together on Zoom for like an hour and discuss it. You're welcome to join it too if you want. But
I love that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. I think we're reading Essentialism or something like that right now, which actually turned into like I feel like you read a book and you feel like somebody's talking about you, and it just sucker punched me. So it's a great read. Yeah. 4-Hour Workweek. Absolutely amazing. Jesse, thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to having you back on.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Liked what you heard and want to stay connected? Join our Facebook group or find me anywhere on social media at Wizards of Amazon, or text the word Amazon to 69922.